Hi, Jane. I've never seen me do it live either. LOL. Hi, Jane. I've never seen me do it live either. I know you guys can hear me. You're quite welcome, Jane the Seeker and Andrea. Yes, I'm secretly out here in the ethers listening. I'm reading what you're doing. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes. Jane the Seeker and Andrea. Yes, I'm secretly out here in the ethers listening. I'm reading what you're doing. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes. Jane the Seeker, Andrea. Yes, I'm secretly out here in the ethers listening. I'm reading what you're doing. About 5 minutes. There you go. Happy Sunday to you, Lori B. Hello, Penny Lane. How are you? This is John. Secretly stalking the jackboard. I wish I was still snuggled under covers. that would be lovely. But it is cold and rainy here in Akron, Ohio. I kind of like this secret stalking thing. I don't have to type anything. Well, thanks, Sherry. Thanks for coming and thanks for listening. From Shelby, Ohio. Another Ohioan. That's great. Have you lived in Ohio your whole life, Jane? One minute to go. Well, thank you. Grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, over on the coast. Michigan. My co-host on Spirit Cafe podcast is from Michigan. Hey, A lady, I'm a man. How are you? 18 seconds before this thing kicks off. So I'm going to shut up for a while. Welcome to the Live Loving Livestream. Simple spirituality without the guilt. With John Davis. Well, now there is a voice to the face, and it's a face to the voice, or however you say that. Hello, everyone. How are you today? I'm really excited that you guys are here. Turn up my volume. Am I quiet? Hold on. Hang on. Is this any better? How's the volume now? Let me know. So I am here. If you can hear me, how's my sound? Suzanne says I'm quiet. All right, so until I hear something about sound, I'm going to assume the sound's good. Okay, good. There you go. Sounds good here. Yeah. All right. So anyway, guys, let's go ahead and get this thing started. I got some really interesting and fun stuff for you today. Something to hopefully make you think. Today I'm talking about fear, and I constantly talk about love and fear. And love being, of course, our source, God, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, yada, yada, is what Tamara and I call it on Spirit Cafe. But what is fear? What is fear? Fear is the balance. It's the thing that we use to experience love fully. But when you break it out of that esoteric answer and you put it into a more real-world answer, fear is just a negatively focused uncertainty. That's all fear really is. Because if you think about it, fear is an emotional reaction to some future event that may or may not happen with you focused on a negative outcome. Fear is literally negatively focused uncertainty. Because if you were focused on a positive outcome, you wouldn't be afraid at all. You'd be happy and excited about it happening, excited about it coming. So fear literally is a negative focus. And so the problem that I see most people have with fear in general and in our regular lives is fear. We define ourselves as being in fear. And as you know, I talk often about how God gives us whatever we ask for. And if we are in the belief that we're in fear, that means we're inside of fear.
And when you're inside of something, you do not have control of where it goes and how it moves. It seems out of your control. So that the very belief of in fear means you're kind of out of control of your fears. So the first thing you have to do is you have to label your fear. And now, how do you label fear? Now, if I ask you what love is, there's all kinds of esoteric answers you're going to get. But love is a positive feeling. In the body, it is a positive feeling. It gives you that warm glow. You're just, oh my gosh, it feels so good, right? Fear is the opposite. Fear is your anxiety, your madness, all of those negative aspects are all various levels of fear. And so we have to define when we're in a positive state or a negative state. So if you're in a negative state, you are leaning towards the fear side. If you're in a very negative state, you're deep in the fear side. And so we have to label our fears. And as one of my greatest teachers in the world taught me, a guy named Yoda taught me, what is it? Named must your fear be before banish it you can. Right? Named must your fear be before banish it you can. You actually have to look at your fear and say, oh, I'm in a negative state. I am in fear. So once you label it, what's interesting is once you label it as fear, you're no longer inside of it. Because now you've labeled it, it's now an external concept. So now it's in your hands in front of you. Now, if you can work with your fears and negate your fears and get your positive focus back on, what happens is you can pretty much achieve anything because anything is possible within love, within God. And so it's all about reducing our fears. Now, for many, many years, I spoke about this, and then when my teachings weren't really reaching the masses, 15, 20 years ago, I went into the corporate environment. And what I started doing was I started teaching these principles, but using basically a corporate vocabulary. So I wasn't talking about past lives or spiritual anything. I was talking about, goal setting and achievement and peak performance. But what I was actually doing was I was sneaking spiritual principles into the corporate environment. And really fascinating. What I want to show you today, this is something that I'm really kind of excited to show you guys. When I did the corporate work, and I still do the corporate work, it's just never the twain shall mix. I never put them together because in corporate people don't like people coming in talking about reincarnation or any of that stuff. But if you really want to stalk me and look at my stuff, go to corporateactionhero.com and see that channel. And there's also a YouTube channel called corporateactionhero.com. Never got real traction, but there's over I believe 600 videos on there of me doing daily videos. So you want to check that out if you want to see some more corporate-y stuff. But what I want to show you today is how I teach managing fear in others, how to help somebody else break out of their fear and into a more positive state. And so what I'm going to show you today is an interesting piece of one of my corporate speeches. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk about the principles and how they work. So have fun with this for the next few minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate the 5 F's and how they work, right? Now, 5 F's. Well, the first one was what? Fearlessness, right? Now, I just brought her on a stage. The number one fear she has to have is being in front of you, right? Is she a rock star? Yes, she is. She has no idea what's about to happen, and she's up here talking with somebody who she doesn't know, right? And so my job is to break ground and create rapport first to create that positive atmosphere we talked about. What kind of things do you like to do? You like fishing? Do you fish?
Somewhat.
You've been fishing?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever taught you how to cast a rod?
No.
No, really? Have you cast a rod before?
I don't think so.
Okay, so how about if I'm going to teach you how to cast a rod today? How about that? Would that be helpful? Okay, why don't you come over here, and I'll get you a fishing rod. Fishing rod. Fishing rod. Irina, is that the name?
Yeah.
Irina. Go ahead and hold this in your hand. Don't do anything until I tell you. Right? Just hold it right like this. Relax. Let your arm relax to your side. So the way fishing rods work, don't do anything yet.
The way a fishing rod would work, the fish are over there, right? Actually, can you turn this way, face them over there? Okay. Hey, you guys over here, can you guys do me a favor? This table right here. Everybody take your hands like this, put them underneath your chin, and go. Come on, keep it up. Come on, fish, come on, fish, come on, fish. There's your fish, right? Don't stop. Right. What you want to do is you want to come up, get it all the way behind you, and then flick your wrist forward. Okay?
With the right wrist?
Okay. Can I touch you? Okay. I'm going to show you how to do it first. Relax, and let me do all the work. That way you can just feel what it feels like. Feel that little flick at the end? Yeah. Okay. So hold on. You're going to do this in just a second. Okay. Whenever you're ready. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'll stay out here with you, I promise. Right. So just all you do is come up all the way behind you and point right at that guy. Okay, let it get all the way behind you. There you go. Do it again. Relax. Take a breath. There you go. Just all the way behind and all the way out. There you go. Hey, not bad, huh? Okay. One of the things that I have to deal with being a facilitator in this process is recognizing fear, right? We all have fears, right? The first time she did it, she kind of did this, right? This is the posture of fear, right? If you want to identify fear in yourself and in others, here's the quickest way to do it. Look at how they're breathing. How many of you have watched National Geographic shows on TV? How many of you saw that one with the gazelle? They're all with the gazelle. What are you talking about? Right. And the gazelle's out there eating grass in the field. It kind of looks like this. Right? And then the predator cat hits the field, right? First thing that gazelle does is this. It shallows their breathing. The reason they do this is a natural fight or flight response. They're actually pumping their lungs up so they can run further and faster. We all, as animals of the world, have the same exact process. How many of you have watched a horror movie and have gone, right? We all do it. It's part of our natural response. If you find yourself in a fear state, if you can take a moment, take a big deep breath, and relax the muscles, your mind will get back in play. Actors on Broadway are trained that if they forget their lines, they are to stop, take a breath and relax, and all their lines flood back into their head because when they're in that fear state, their body is looking for air, and air supersedes remembering your line. So it's the same thing here. Just take a breath, relax, take your time, and look at the fishies. There you go. Do it one more time. Nice. Okay, great. So now she's learned a new skill, right? Now, once you've learned a new skill, isn't there always something that comes up that seems like a risk or something contrary? Didn't we talk about that? Right? So don't you think we ought to give her more risk? So we're just going to give you a little bit more risk. Just a little bit more risk. You can face me now. Don't do anything. Okay. I'm going to hold this out here. Okay. Look at me. Did you hear it crack? So you already know how to crack it, right? You already know how to crack it. So all I want you to do is don't worry about that. Don't even think about that. All I want you to do is look right here and focus right there. Notice I did not say right here. Right. If you look right here, I promise you'll look like a rock star, right? Just look right there and just cast your fishing rod whenever you're ready. No, stay right there. Whenever you're ready. Okay. Take a breath, relax. No, really. Okay, you got this. I promise. Look at me. I promise you won't hurt me. I promise that. Okay. Just look where you want it to go. Okay. Okay, don't stop at the back or you're going to hurt yourself. Take a breath, relax. Did you guys notice that when I stuck my arm out there, it went from to relax. Take a breath, relax. Take it easy. Let me show you a quick secret with the whip. Can I see it for a second? If the whip is moving at all, it will crack. Right? You don't have to muscle it, ever. It's especially with my arm out there. Take a breath, relax. Just look where you want it to go, and cast your fishing rod. Okay. Don't stop at the back. All one motion. There you go.
And that was taking someone through a process. Now, I'm seeing Andrea talk here about male and female. Fear is fear. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. That's a projection of each person and their personal experience. Fear is fear. Love is love. And that's the way that works. When we put a projection on it, like it has to, this is from the male perspective or the female perspective, we're actually taking one step away from the actual translation. Let's talk about this amazing woman who was just on stage with me. What's so very amazing about this woman, she was, when I went out into the audience to choose someone, there were women out there who were like, pick me, pick me, pick me. I chose her because of the fact that she was, in fact, a very timid person. So I chose her because I wanted someone who I could guide through fear. When I brought her to the stage, I knew full well that she would not like being in front of that audience. So the first thing I said to her was, welcomed her to the stage. Thank you for helping me. Gave her purpose, reason to help. And then I turned to the audience and I said, isn't she a rock star? So I negated the fear she had right off the bat. Right off the bat. I said her fear was being in front of those people. So I knew I had to get the people to tell her they liked her first. So by getting the audience to go, yes, we like you, she wanted their acceptance, and I gave her the acceptance first. Next thing that happened was I said, she's on stage with someone she doesn't know. Now, I watched her when I say that, step backwards one step. Now, when she stepped backwards one step, I stepped backwards as well, because her physical body said she's stepping away from fear. And so I doubled her safety zone. I literally doubled her safety zone so I could help her alleviate her fear more. I also continued to joke and keep the positivity in the space, laughing, joking, back and forth. What's really interesting is the next thing that happened was I started talking about fishing. Now, you'll notice I did not talk about whips at all. And I saw someone say that there's symbolism to the whip. There is no symbolism to that whip. It's just a prop. Symbolism is a projection upon an idea. And that's an interesting idea. That idea takes you to that next space. When I hold up a whip, people in the room think things because of what it is, yes, but it's not about trying to be symbolic. It's about experience. They have an experience. They think pain, danger. Some of them actually think Frisky Friday night, but we don't want to go there. I want this person on stage with me to be in a calm state, a fearless state. So I started talking about serene fishing. Once I handed her the whip and put it in her hand, I didn't want her going down into that rabbit hole of fear of this thing might hurt somebody. Instead, I immediately got the audience to do the fish face. Now, what do I have going on? I have the audience laughing. I have her laughing on stage, keeping the positivity going. I'm keeping the positive light experience going. Then I get her to actually just focus on where she wants to go. I make more jokes about how I'm not going to be on stage with her and all that stuff. I come back. I'm keeping the lightness going and the positivity going. Andrea, we'll hold off your questions until the end, and we'll dive deeper into this. Let me get this part out, and we'll dive into that. The other thing is that when we get into this space of getting her to actually crack this whip, when I'm getting her to crack this whip, I'm looking at the space of I want her to stay in a very positive state the whole time. And so I'm constantly making her laugh. I'm constantly making her do a very easy space. I want her in that mindset of very easy. So I got her laughing during that. So then I get her to crack the whip. Now she's got nothing to be afraid of because there's nobody in front of her holding a target, right? The next thing I do is I pull out a target, right? Now I know because I know that from experience, her first fear is that she can't do it, right? And because she's just held a whip for the first time. And by the way, earlier in the program, I actually asked the audience who's cracked a whip. And she did not raise her hand, so she had never cracked a whip. So I get her in this space. And as I get her into this space of, we're just doing this, I get her to the point where I say to her, did you hear it crack? And she says, yes. So I get her to acknowledge that she did achieve that goal. She did achieve making the whip crack. Once she achieved making the whip crack, my next process was to go, you already know how to crack the whip. So I support the fact that she had done something. Now, in one of the other videos, I talked about faith being built sometimes by what I call trust faith, where you have to have results over time to be able to build that faith. So what I did was, you already cracked it, so you already know how to crack it, so I've already created a trust faith in her. I also, in creating that trust faith, I shifted her timeline, because before that moment, she was in the process of learning a skill, and after that moment, she was in the process of knowing that skill, knowledge of that skill. So now I've got a target out there. Now, what's the next fear she has? The next fear she has is she's going to hit me with a whip. She's going to hit me with a whip. And so I say to her, look at me. I promise you're not going to hurt me. I wanted to negate that fear right off the bat and get right into that idea of, this is not going to hurt me. You're not going to hurt me, right? So, sometimes when you're guiding somebody through something, you got to lie to them. I'm kidding. I'm joking. You have to realize that if you're helping someone out of their fear, you have to come from their experience, not yours. You have to meet them where they are and guide them through. You can't expect them to be where you want them to be. You have to meet them where they are and lead them along to the place where they want to go, right? Or you want them to go eventually. So you have to meet everybody that you're dealing with where they are. That's why when you look at the comments section, when someone comes in here throwing a bunch of fear and anxiety, or saying, why aren't you why are you saying these blasphemous things or whatever? I never go at them and get into arguments with them. First I say I respect your beliefs, or I say we just believe different things, but I recognize the love inside of you, because there's no reason for me to try to expect them to come to where I am, and they're trying their best to get me to go to where they are. But what I'm just doing is I'm meeting them and I'm saying I recognize you for who and what you are and what you believe. And I think that's a really great place to start in any conversation, is meet people where they are and just start leading them along. The next thing is when she finally went to crack the whip, you could instantly see that her fear was kicking in, because she stopped cracking the whip the way she was supposed to. Everything started changing. She was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And so I just got her to relax again. And I said that we did the whole I promise you're not going to hurt me thing. And then I just got her to relax and take an exhale, a breath. And then she just cracked the whip, right? It took her 2 times to do it. 2 times before she took it right out of my hand, right? Didn't hurt me, didn't hurt me at all. I'm kidding. But the thing is that the idea of getting her to go through this process was all about managing her fears and helping her through her fear process. Now, let me tell you what happens when I do that on stage at a corporate event. The person who comes to stage has a life-changing event, because they were timid before because they were holding themselves back. And now, because they have this experience where they're out there and they've gone on stage and they have cracked the whip and taken a target out of somebody's hand. Let me ask you a question. Do you think before she walked on that stage, she believed she could do it? Do you think that in any way, shape, or form, I'll walk on that stage and crack a target out of that guy's hand? She didn't believe she could do it, right? What did I have to do? I had to give her faith that she could, lots of positive reinforcement and love, and I had to banish her fear. I had to negate her fear and get her out of her fear zone. Now, I think some of you will appreciate. Some of you will appreciate this, especially Andrew. I think you'll appreciate this. I have done that program 1,000 times, easily 1,000 times, and the only time that I've ever had a problem with a person on stage was a man, because a man got on stage and his testosterone kicked in and he got dangerous. And so for that routine, I always use a woman, because women are just more reliable and they're just better at what they do. And in that sort of environment, they're less prone to the testosterone kick. But that's not to negate one or the other. It's just a different way. With a man, I have to I have to show him in a different way. I have to teach him in a different way. And I can't, with a man on stage, I can't in any way, shape, or form make him think I'm making him feel like less of a man, because they get that testosterone kick. They're there to protect. So now, before I go into the special thing I have for you today, I want to go ahead and answer some of these questions, especially Andrea. I want to, because you threw something out here that's very interesting. Please don't dismiss a young woman's fear or an older white man. I'm not dismissing anything because I am just not focusing on it. I am focusing on the fear itself and focusing on the negative aspect of what has happened to black people or to women in general. Only prolongs it. It only creates more of that focus. And the reality of it is, until we get past the focus on the negatives and get into the focus on the positives, we can't change it. That's why Mother Teresa, when asked why she wouldn't go to an anti-war rally, said, have a peace rally and I'll come. When you're focused on what has happened bad in the past, you are just prolonging it. So you want to work on the fear, not the incidents. And so we work on the fear, and then it all gets better for everybody, and we don't have to worry about that process. Andrew says, "Oh, John, we need to talk." Now, Andrew, let me ask you a question. That statement right there, "Oh, John, we need to talk," is that specifically to change my mind? Because if that's specifically to change my mind, it's going to be an interesting thing, because that's you trying to sway me to your belief. And the experience that I have is that, and I've had a lot of experiences. And I know I'm a white man, and I know that I'm being judged for that. Well, you shouldn't judge me for that, because I didn't do those things, right? And in fact, I have those experiences. So that's what I'm talking about. If we focus on a broad generalization of one segment of society, you're missing the point. It's the fear that was elicited that is the problem. I have a horrible fear of abandonment. Once again, Andrew, you've brought in sexual perpetrators into a conversation that had nothing to do with sexual perpetrators. So this is about fear. This is a method of taking us off track down these angles. Sexual perpetrators should be absolutely punished for their crimes. Right, but you're focusing on the negative aspect again, and that negative aspect takes us to a. And Andrea, I have a great respect for you, and I introduce and I completely respect your beliefs. However, this is not the forum to hijack what's being said, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't want to go off topic, because you're going down these avenues that are based on past experiences and negative things that have happened in the past, and I'm talking about how to change it. I'm talking about how to change the experience. So please don't think I'm in any way trying to bash you. I'm just trying to answer the questions and trying to show you a different perspective, because what's happening is you're trying to take me to that perspective. I understand that perspective. I have worked with that perspective. I have helped in that. I have marched for that on Washington many times for those perspectives. It was after my regression that I realized that I was doing the wrong things to make change, and I was doing the wrong things to create the world we all want. I want equality for everybody without fear or anxiety. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on from this topic, because we're kind of losing ground on what was being said today. So let me go ahead. We'll do more questions towards the end. But I want to share with you a friend of mine named Alora Marie. Alora Marie recently was a guest on the Spirit Cafe podcast, and she is a channel. She channels a group of entities she calls Hale. Whether you believe in channeling or not, whether you believe in groups of entities or not, doesn't matter. Her intention is loving. And so I would say just listen to what she has to say, and listen to what she has to say. And she recorded a special message for me for this podcast today. And I wanted to share it with you, and then we can talk about her, and then I will come back on and we will do more questions towards the end. So let's hear Alora.
We are Hale. We have a message for you on this live stream, and it is this: nothing is out of time. There is plenty of time. There's plenty of time for your new awakening. There's plenty of time for you to realize and express and know all of the things that you want to know and express and realize. The greatest thing that we're going to offer to you in this particular conversation that we're having is this: write a letter, not to send, but just for yourself. Write a letter to your past life in this lifetime. Write a letter to an old relationship. Write a letter to a time period in your life. Write a letter to an organization or a job that you were involved in. Write a letter to anything that's really troubling you right now and say, "Dear so-and-so, thank you so much. Because of you, this is what I have learned. This is who I am now." And write that letter. Allow yourself to take a few times to write it. Maybe take a few days. If you begin to write it and you can't really find or feel what you're thankful for about that experience or that time, if you can't really pull or know out of you the ways that you're stronger and clearer now, but you'll do it if you keep at it. And in the end, you'll have a letter that when you read it back, you will feel nothing but joy, appreciation, and knowing about what you came from. Then you can just shred that letter or have a little ceremony and burn it in the fireplace, and you can move on because there's nothing you need to do with that letter. What you have now is you have the thing you've been looking for. You have the peace within so that you can begin to build the new understanding that you're looking for. If you're really struggling with what's going on in your life or the world, and you're really seeking for something else, it's very difficult to try and seek while you're still struggling. And that causes a lot of push-pull. And some people go through some type of a change crisis that can actually last for months or for years, simply because they're doing too much seeking and they're not doing enough of processing and letting go. And it's the letting go that allows the presence for the new thing to come in. But here's the thing about letting go. You're not going to let go of something that you're not done processing. You're not going to let go of something that you haven't gotten to the place where it's time to let it go. But here's the mistake that is often made, and we love to clear this up for you. You don't let it go by pushing against it or being mad at it. You let it go by extracting from it the strength, the clarity, the knowing that you received because of the experience, so that you are now whole and complete. That thing that happened, that time of life that you went through, didn't take anything from you. It didn't even leave you neutral. It gave. It gave. It gave. You are more than you were before. More knowing, more clear. Now, from this place, so you've written the letter and you've got it gone. Now you're like, well, now I'm seeking. Now, this is really important. What are you seeking for? Well, if joy isn't on the top of your list, put joy on the top of your list. But if the word joy is not a happy word for you, then pick a word that feels good. Peace, clarity, fulfillment, knowing. Take some time to find the word that brings forth a feeling or a concept that really feels right for you now. And then say, okay, great. I'm looking for a sense of peace. Now that you know you're looking for a sense of peace, when you find a new book, or you find a new teacher, or you find a new this, or you find a new that, and you start to immerse yourself in it, you can ask yourself, is this assisting me in being more peaceful? And if the answer is no, say, maybe I'll revisit that later. But right now, I'm looking for things that will help me feel peace. So then you gather around you teachers and things that help you feel peaceful. Now, you might find that after a while, you've had peace, but you're starting to feel the desire for something else. What is that word? Now maybe you're looking for excitement or a sense of purpose or, right, a greater knowing. And now you say, well, now let me gather to me the people and the experiences and the teachers. Let me sort of sort them and see which ones are helping me feel more of that. You might go back to ones that you put aside before, find an old book that's been lying on your shelf for a while, and that one comes back. You might pick up a book that you just read, reread it. And now instead of seeing all the things that look like peace, now you're seeing all the things that look like purpose. And you're going to work on that for a while. You're going to play with that for a while. And then you might say, well, now I feel like I want to do something. And then we say, ooh, that's great. Put yourself in a place where you're ready to receive until you just can't sit still. Just receive, play, and receive. You'll know when it's time to do, because you'll be like, gosh darn it, I'm doing it. Or, yep, I've done it. Or, I've already scheduled it. When it's an inspired action, it's unstoppable. And yet, there are times when you know you're called to do something, but you just can't bring yourself to do it. In that case, we offer you this. For this conversation, this last piece that we're going to give you, we're going to offer you this. I live, or I choose to live, in divine timing. I love perfect time. And I feel called to do this thing. But who said it had to be right this moment? Is there a timing for this thing that is calling me? And if you get a little excited about that, then you say, great. Let me know when it's time and make it obvious. You'll know when it's time. And in the meantime, as always, take care of what needs to be taken care of. Do what needs to be done, that has to be done to keep your life going in the way that you want to keep it going. And let these other things be icing on the cake. Let them be things you do knowing that you've been responsible with your physical life, your physical world, the things that are around you. Everything is spiritual. Everything. Filling up the water jug for your water that comes down and gets filtered, spiritual. Doing the dish, spiritual. Channeling, spiritual. It's all spiritual. But the thing is, you don't want to forget that you have a physical life. You chose to be on the planet that has time and it has stuff, right? To play with and do. And so you look around your life and you say, based on what I'm living, what needs to be maintained? What actions should I take to help that? Pay this bill, sweep the walk, whatever. What's really important? Great. Do those things. And then with all the rest, let yourself unfold in perfect you-ness. And so it is.
I want you guys to know that message was channeled last Monday. And I had no idea last Monday what I was even going to talk about today. In fact, what I was going to talk about today was decided yesterday. And so that message came through her last Monday. I think it's the perfect message. The part about processing especially, what she was saying was process from the positive out of the past experience. She was actually literally saying, look at the strengths that you got from the past experiences. Look at the positive things that have made you stronger because of the past experiences. So that's really a very, very interesting thing. The other thing she said towards the end was, if, right now, the big thing's not going to happen. So stay focused in your present moment. Do the small things here and now. And if you do them in alignment with what's coming, then it's going to come into your experience even quicker. That's the idea of this whole thing. Now, I want to dive in to see, there's a lot of questions that are coming into the chat board, and there's a couple of them T. Jones, does this technique of fear management work for an adult child that is afraid of getting into the workplace? Here's the interesting thing about these techniques is they work for everybody all the time, because all you're doing is, every one of them is afraid of something. And what is fear? I personally believe there's only one fear. It's the fear of not being loved in some form. Now, loved is an interesting word. Love can be respected. Love can be appreciated. Love can just be acknowledged or seen. I mean, there's various levels of love. But you can pretty much look at everybody's fear, and you can find that there is a fear in there. For instance, the young lady on stage, when she came to the stage, I knew her fear was being in front of that audience. You can find the fear that they have. That whole process of going, where are they coming from? What is their fear? When you look at somebody who's argumentative, you say, what is their fear? And then you go to the fear, and if you can find a way to alleviate the fear, then that's how you do it. Now, someone going off into the workplace, they're afraid of failing. They're afraid of not finding a good job. They're afraid of, and to that is self-love. They're afraid of not being respected. They're afraid of probably letting you as a parent down. And the worst thing you can do as a parent when they're in that sort of state is get angry and go at them. Why aren't you getting a job? Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't help. That only absolutely 100% makes their fear stronger, because you're giving them something to be fearful for. So if you go to them and you say, I understand it's hard, but you know what? We're going to help you figure it out. We're going to help you go out there and do this. We're going to be there for your support. You show them the unconditional love that you love them no matter what, and then you help them solve the process. That's really the most interesting thing about this process. When you're dealing with anybody, with my son, my son is now 18 years old. Of course, I'm dealing with hormones right now, and there's a whole bunch of that going on. But when he was 6, there was all these great moments, or 7 or 8. There were all these great moments where he had a fear response, and I would literally make him laugh while he's in the fear response, and he would be out of the fear response in seconds, because fear response is just an uncertainty. It's a negatively focused uncertainty. And by getting them the focus to shift to a positive, then you have a real big chance to change. Let's see what else we got here. One of the things I saw earlier, and I believe it was Andrea, and Andrea, I do not mean to keep going back. I'm not in any way trying to harp on you, but it's something that I find really important. You said fear is genetically encoded. I 100% disagree with you. And the reason I 100% disagree with you is because that is one of the New Age concepts that's out there, and I believe that's just New Age dogma, as it were, that is being wrapped around something so simple that it's just making it more complicated and making it harder for people to actually get to the loving space and away from their fears, because it just focuses them on the fact that, well, if it's genetically coded, then I have no play in it. It's fate or destiny. And if you can ask and you are given whatever you ask for, then there is no fate or destiny. There is no have to. There is no genetic code that says I'm going to be in fear. Those sorts of things are just illusions that have been wrapped around something so very simple. When Alora was talking, she was talking about the idea of choosing what we believe, choosing that bad experience in the past or the experiences of others in the past, choosing to find the strength in it rather than to choose on how bad it was. It's the positive and negative focus. Now, when you talk about fear is, as I said at the very beginning of this thing, fear is just negatively focused uncertainty. And in the reality of it is, if you can get positively focused about your uncertainty, then it's like, you have anticipation to go forward. You have anticipation to move. So I look back and I've had a horrible experience, and I go, I could totally get the strength in it. Let me give you a real good example. My parents had 7 children. I was number 6 of 7 children. My father was an emotional abuser, sometimes a physical abuser, and of the 7 kids, I was the one that he abused. I was the one who had a lot of struggle with my father. And it wasn't until I said about my father, he was a human. He was someone going through his own emotional struggles. He probably didn't know better because his father was an alcoholic abuser. And he basically had his father's personality. So he didn't understand where he was. He didn't understand where he was. And what I got out of it was a couple things. One, I became a very strong person after I let it go, after I let him go. I became a very healthy and strong person because I went through that, and I'm not going to continue that cycle. My family, we never said I love you to each other. And I remember the first time I said I love you to my mother, she stuttered because I love you too. She couldn't say it. By the end, it was easy conversation between she and I. My father never said it once. And the entire time I knew my father, he never said that once. My son hears it at least twice a day. He hears it when I send him to bed, or he's going off to bed, or I'm going off to bed. I always say I love him, or when he's about to do something else. And so, Marianne, that is a great question. I'll get to that in just a second. So the idea of this is really to realize that your children and you are all accessing from their subconscious belief. Now, the most famous Buddhist quote in history, you've probably heard this in one of my other videos, is life is suffering, right? But when it's actually translated from the language of Pali, which was originally written in, to English, English has 3 translations of the word dukkha, which is the word for pain or suffering. And Pali being a conceptual language, literal language translations don't work because it's the 3 translations combined that is the meaning of the word. And the actual translation of the word dukkha and the actual Buddhist phrase is, life is suffering from habitual response from our subconscious belief. That is the actual literal translation of a concept of the Buddhist phrase, life is suffering. Think about that. Life is suffering from habitual response to our subconscious mind, our subconscious belief. So we're habitually responding. And if we're habitually responding, the only way you change that habitual response is to start something new. Or as they would say, be born again, wipe the slate clean and start putting new things on your slate. And what's interesting about this is that when you start putting new things on your slate, you put more things in your subconscious belief, and your subconscious belief changes. And now your subconscious belief is creating new, very different things. So if you can take the idea of the people who won't articulate their fears. Now, I bet you the fact that you're saying that they won't articulate their fears means they haven't said it to you, but you know they're in fear. Can you guess what their fear is? That woman who walked on stage to do the program with me, when she walked on stage, I knew her fear was that she was going to be in front of that audience. I knew that, right? I just knew it. And what did I do? I got the audience to give her love. And by giving her love, it negated that fear up front. The other thing is that when I talk to somebody who doesn't believe the same things I do, I don't know whether they're right or wrong. I just choose my beliefs. I choose what I feel and know to be true for me. If that feels what they know to be true for them, that's great. It's when we get into this idea that you have to believe what I believe. And Andrea, I'm not saying this is you. This is not you at all. I get that. When you say that you had a past life as an apostle, you get all of the people who are very invested in the infallibility of the Bible to come after you. And when they come after you, you have to deal with that experience very lovingly, or you're just absolutely 100% inflaming them. So if they want to articulate their fears, let me go back to that one so I don't lose that before it goes off of this screen. If they're not articulating their fears, you can probably go, know what the fear is and find a way to negate their fears. A lot of times their fear is, and if you really think about it this way, if they're afraid, where is it they're not going to be loved? Try that little exercise. Where is it they're not going to be loved? Now, understand, there's a lot of times you can't use the word love with people because some people associate the word love with certain things. But where is it they're not going to get the positive reinforcement or the positive experience? And then articulate that they're going to get the positive experience. show them they're going to get it. With the woman on stage, I said, "Isn't she a rock star?" And yeah, they cheered her. They not only gave her the positive reinforcement, they told her she should be a rock star. She was going to be huge. It was going to be. They gave her a lot of love, right? And all the way through it, they applauded her. They cheered her. At the end, they cheered her and they called her an action hero. And it was all about the positive reinforcement all the way through, right? And a lot of times, when you're associating positive reinforcement, sometimes that's a matter of, I handed her a whip, then I got her to laugh. That little positive reinforcement right there. I often say that when I'm manifesting in my present moment, sometimes I mess one up, right? And I don't go, I'm so dumb, because that's how I went bald. But when I smack myself, when I slack myself like this, what I'm actually doing is I'm wasting another moment. I'm just wasting another moment, right? I gave my permission to say, oh, that's silly. I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. And by saying, oh, that's silly, I made myself smile. I made myself laugh. And then I moved on. I'm reading questions here. Steve Murphy, I agree with you. Love is all there is. Because even fear itself was given to us out of love to experience love. I don't think you're afraid at all, Andrea. I think that you're very much in your beliefs, and I think and I respect that. I completely respect that. I don't think you're completely afraid of all. In fact, I think you're really smart for still being under your covers. I completely agree we're shifting, but I think the shift is not about adding more information around it. I think it's all about getting down into the feeling of pure love without the fear. And I think when you focus on negative things in the past, all you're doing is projecting fear forward, because our present moment is what creates our experience. The present moment is what creates the next moment. And so if we take this moment and we waste it on the negative things from the past, we are wasting this moment of creation that creates something positive ahead of us. We have to take this moment and make it as loving as positive as possible so that the next moment is loving and positive. We have to change the subconscious belief from behind us. So this is getting pretty interesting. I think this is interesting. I'll tell you one of the, pre-coffee. My God, woman, what are you doing? Pre-coffee. I've already done a vat of coffee myself. Before I do these things, I bow at the altar of Juan Valdez, the elixir of life. I'll tell you a funny story about coffee. When I did USO tours, I did 6 USO tours. I was on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan. I did all that kind of work. And 2 of us on the tour, there was 4 of us who went on the tour. 2 of us on the tour drank coffee. And every morning we would get up early before anybody else. We would go find the coffee on the base. And a lot of the military bases over there have these things called green bean cafes. It's a way they try to make a Starbucks for the military so that people feel like they have a taste of home when they're away. But you walk into it, it looks like a Starbucks, it feels like a Starbucks, and you can get the same type of cool concoctions. But we would get in there every morning. He and I would go find the Green Beans Cafe or the place that had any kind of coffee, and we would walk in. And my friend Todd would get his cup of coffee, and he would hold it very close to himself, and he'd rub the cup gently, and he'd say, "Oh, dark mother, once again I suckle at thy teat." And I have stolen that line, and I've used it many, many times. Yes, Andrea, I respect your beliefs. I just disagree with them. I just disagree with the focus of it. It's just negative focus, and in my opinion, my belief, it's just negative focus. And when we focus negatively, God gives us what we focus on. And so when I look at what you're saying here, it's a warning for awareness and assessment. The assessment and the awareness that it is literally, what are you focused on? I have to assess what I'm focused on, because it's a negative focus. Because once again, if you were in this moment and you were focused on a positive outcome, you would not be afraid. But I'm going to go back to this other thing you said. You said you wanted to bring consciousness to the collective agreements that we may be shifting. we are absolutely 100% shifting. And I can tell you that from just my experience of 15 years ago speaking about this and my experiences now. Back then, everyone was talking about all the mystical experiences and all the energetic ley lines and all the mathematics and all the blah, blah, blah. Now they're talking about how can I feel this? How can I feel this experience? The whole consciousness has shifted out of that stuff. And people, I can't tell you, and let me just take this moment to thank everybody. I get emails daily now, that tell me that they're thanking me for what I'm doing or thanking me for bringing this forward. And people tell me that they see the videos and they start to cry because they've always thought they'd hear this, or they've always wanted to hear this, or they've always believed this, but they've never actually heard anybody say it. And this morning I got one, I think the woman's name was Rachel, and it literally made me cry. Because I could read in her email the struggle she had with loving Jeshua, loving that experience. And what I find interesting now is the whole idea of stepping into her divinity is so much more clear. And she was thanking me for putting the videos out, and that email this morning, it moved me to tears because it's what I wanted 15, 20 years ago. It's what I've always strived to bring forward, is that simple connection to source. That simple connection to source. I wanted that 20 years ago, and no one was getting it, and so I had to stop. And now I feel like people are getting it. People are starting to understand it. People are starting to come to the space of knowing it's a feeling and not a thinking. When you get in your head and you start to wrap all these concepts and ideas around something so simple, you lose focus and you lose sight of it. And it is really as simple as feeling the love and living the love and being the love. That's why when I meditate, all I do is focus on the love, the loving feeling. And when I get that vibration going, I go into such a bliss state because I'm there. I just, I don't think everybody's, as I say all the time, spirituality is a personal journey. And I know whenever I do it, just so you guys, I don't know if you know this or not, every time I do a live stream, I lose followers. I lose people. I lose people because they just don't believe what I'm saying, or they want to, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because it's their journey. It's not my journey. It's usually like 5 or 6 people every time I do a live stream, and then the next day the things jump up. So I'm not really concerned about it. I'm like, everything I talk about challenges, and I understand that. Everything I talk about challenges what they've been trained to believe, what they've chosen to believe, and as I've said often, it's not for me to tell them what to believe. All it is for me to put out information. And as Joshua said, let those who have eyes to see, and let those who have ears to hear. And in other words, when they come to the information, if they see it as true and they feel it as true and they hear it as true, then it's for them. Maybe it's not your time to have this information. Maybe it's not your time to assess this information. So let me move on to the next. Hi, John. Thank you for the thought-provoking chat today. How do we begin to release the conditioned fear from life circumstances and from what is happening in today's society? Well, let's talk about, first of all, today's society. The reason why we're having the crazy fear responses right now is because we are shifting. As we shift, those who are most fearful get louder and they get bigger responses. And what's interesting, if you really look at the things that are going on, the people who have done bad things or do bad things are now doing them so openly that everyone can see it. So, right now it seems like a horrible time for us all, but really what it is it's shifting. Socrates once said, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. What that means is when their argument doesn't work, they start calling names. They start getting loud. They start getting defiant. They start doing things, to stop you. That is what's happening in today's society. So that is happening because we are shifting to a new perspective, a new place. And what I think is really interesting is what I think is really interesting right now is the conditioned fear is just exactly that. Is exactly what I said about the Buddhist quote, that subconscious belief that's back there. The only way you break out of that subconscious belief and that fear from that subconscious belief, and maybe this does answer your question, Andrea, is to literally start new, start over. Literally say, okay, I'm going to make a present moment that's loving and caring and free of fear. And what's interesting is you have to literally be born again. It's like starting a new life. And you have the creative power to start a new life in every moment. And so you can literally say, okay, I am starting fresh, clean, no dogma, no anything. I'm just starting right here, right now, in just the feeling of love. And I'm going to make this moment as positive as possible. Because the only way you break out of that subconscious belief is to let it go and let it go away. And the past experiences are sitting in subconscious belief. And the way you let that go is to make your part of the world. Now, here's the interesting thing. Your question also implies that you're going to change the entire society. Well, you change the entire society by focusing here, not there. You have to change your part of the world and express it. I have you ever had well, I'm going to give you an example. My co-host on Spirit Cafe, the first time I ever saw Tamara's owner, I was in a room that was quiet and dim and dense, and people were not saying anything. It was completely silent. She walked in the room, and instantly the room got brighter and lighter, and people started laughing, and people started talking with her and joking, and she literally carried that loving energy into the room. She changed the environment around her. If we can start stacking people all around the world who carry that with them, carry that loving vibration with them, the vibration of this space changes. And that is how you change the world. You don't change the world by fighting against what's happening in society. You change the world by being something different. That's why Gandhi said, you must be the change you want to see in the world. You must live it first to be the example of it, to bring it about. And Gandhi, little tiny Indian guy, he defeated the entire British Empire. He kicked them out of India, right? By just being nonviolent, just not doing the things that fought against. He just did the things that were so openly not what they wanted, and then just sat back and let them screw up, right? That's what happened to over there in India, is that their fear raged up. They started hurting people for not working when they were told they were supposed to work, and all the strikes and everything, and the British Empire lost not because they were fighting against, because they weren't just going along with the things that didn't comply with what made them feel good. Let go, let God. If you can get to that let go, let God thing, I would say let go, be God, because God is love. Let go and be God. Because if you are the loving person, you have the divine entity inside of you. You have the ability to emanate it out there to the world. And I believe 100% in the idea of communicating your fear. But I would say, instead of communicating it to others, communicate it to yourself first. Because most people will say, this is what I'm afraid of, but they don't dive into themselves and say, I'm changing it because this is what I am, God's name, afraid of. That is declaration in the present moment to God to have fear, because I am afraid is asking God for fear. And that's why it perpetuates. Now, I am love is very different from I am fear. You'll notice my brow going up and down. I am love. I am fear, right? Be the love, and you'll experience the love in the world. Okay. So anyway, wow, we've gone an hour. This has been amazing, guys. Understand, everybody is welcome. Everyone's beliefs are welcome. Everyone's allowed to. Everyone is allowed to express their beliefs. Everyone's allowed to share their beliefs. No one, including me, is allowed to tell you what to believe. No one is allowed to tell you, what you have to believe. There is no should-haves that here or should here. All I'm doing is imparting information and for you to feel and experience. When you let go of all the extraneous stuff and you just allow yourself to feel, you're letting the fears aside. And what keeps us in this physical experience is our fears. If you could get to pure unconditional love, you would be your Holy Spirit self. You would be your Christed self. And that is the goal right now for us all, to release our fears and get back to that loving state. And that is not done here. It is done here. It is done in the feeling of the body. Let me answer this one last question, just very quickly. Thomas Jefferson heavily edited the New Testament to only point out its most positive aspects. He was absolutely focused on the most positive things, and I think that's a very excellent point to close this thing out on. Hey guys, if you really enjoyed Alora's message, you can go to askalora.com. If you want to hear something really interesting, on the Spirit Cafe podcast that I do with Tamara's owner in 2 weeks, Alora is coming on there, and she channeled for like 30 minutes. And I mean, we got some real good stuff on that. We got off that thing, and Tamara was like, "Oh my God, she's amazing." Now, I've known her for years, so she and I had a very close relationship. So I understand. I knew she was amazing, but anyway, we are all in this together. We're in this life thing together. Let's make it a loving one. So. And I love you, Andrea Galvin. No matter what happened here today, there was never any animosity. Thank you guys all, and I hope you will share this replay. I have it now on my schedule every Sunday at noon. Then we're going to start doing these things and start creating some different experiences. I have another video coming out tomorrow. Now check this, guys. Tomorrow is the 100th video in 6 weeks. 100th video in 6 weeks. And that's amazing. Now, many of you might have noticed that my channel went from 500 subscribers to over 1,000 in a couple of days. That was because of the Jeff Mara podcast I was on. And all you new guys who are here from the Jeff Mara, thank you so much. You've been just a complete blessing. You got me over the 1,000 subscribers, which is the first part of getting this channel monetized. The other thing is that yesterday alone, we had 400 watch hours, which puts me within 400 hours of the 4,000 hours needed to monetize. So it's the last thing we have to do is get over the 400 watch hours. And you guys, thank you so much for that. When I was on the Jeff Mara podcast, I offered those guys a discount for the readings, and I don't think it's fair of me to offer a discount to new people and not offer it to people who have been here and loyal. So that discount code is in the description underneath this and underneath tomorrow's video as well. And I love you all. I recognize the love inside of all of you, and I will talk to you very soon. Next Sunday, definitely live. Thank you for joining us at the Live Loving live stream with John Davis. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.